Vorthak war leader Krex stood in what the humans called a minimum security detention facility and tried to understand how his entire understanding of the universe had been proven wrong in a single day. The room around him was larger and more comfortable than the command quarters on his own warship, with soft furniture, entertainment systems, and what appeared to be a small kitchen area. Through the transparent wall that served as his cell door, he could see other detained beings from various species throughout the galaxy. All of them wore the same confused expression that he suspected was permanently fixed on his own face. They were prisoners of war, yet they were being treated better than most civilians in Vorthak society. "Good morning, Krex," came a cheerful voice from the corridor. Facility Administrator Carol Jensen approached his cell carrying a data pad and wearing the same friendly smile she had maintained during the 3 weeks since his capture. She was a small, human female who barely reached his chest. Yet she spoke to him like he was a mildly troublesome child rather than a warrior who had personally conquered 6 worlds. "I hope you slept well," Carol continued as the cell door slid open. "I wanted to discuss your legal options with you today." Krex followed her to a meeting room, still amazed that the humans trusted him to walk freely through their facility. Any other species would have kept him in chains or energy restraints. The humans simply asked politely that he not damage the furniture. "I don't understand your people," Krex said as they sat down at a conference table. "Why do you treat us like guests instead of prisoners?" Carol looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Because you are guests in a way. You're here because of legal complications, not because you're criminals. Once we resolve your documentation issues, you're free to go." "Documentation issues," Krex repeated slowly. "My fleet was conducting a hunting expedition. We intended to conquer your worlds and add your species to our collection of trophies." "Yes. I read your initial statement," Carol replied calmly. "That's why you're being charged with attempted invasion and violation of territorial sovereignty. But these are civil matters, not criminal ones." Krex stared at her in disbelief. "We came to destroy your civilization. I understand that was your intention, but you didn't actually succeed in destroying anything. Your ships never fired their weapons. Your crews never landed on our planets. And no humans were harmed during the enforcement action. From a legal standpoint, you're guilty of trespassing and making threats, not of actual violence." The human woman activated her data pad and showed him a series of legal documents. "I've been reviewing your case with our legal department. If you're willing to pay the fines and agree to certain restrictions on future travel, we can have you released within the week." "Fines?" Krex asked weakly. "For the territorial violations and the cost of impounding your vessels. The total comes to about 2 million credits, but we accept payment plans if that amount creates a hardship." Krex felt his world spinning out of control again. "You're treating an invasion attempt like a parking violation." "Well, yes," Carol agreed. "Because from our perspective, that's essentially what it was. You entered restricted space without permission and made some inappropriate statements when our officers attempted to inspect your vessels." "Inappropriate statements?" Carol consulted her notes. "According to the report, when Officer Martinez asked to see your registration documents, you declared that you were going to, and I quote, feast on the bones of his children while his world burned around him." "That's a traditional Vorthak greeting for enemies," Krex protested. "I'm sure it is. But Officer Martinez interpreted it as a threat of violence against his family. That's why the assault charges were added to your case." Krex remembered the encounter she was describing. He had been standing on the bridge of his flagship when 6 humans in simple environmental suits had somehow bypassed every security system and defense measure he possessed. The lead human had walked up to him politely and shown some kind of identification badge. "Your officer asked me for papers," Krex said. "We are Vorthak warriors. We don't carry papers." That's understandable, but it does create legal complications when you're traveling in foreign territory. All vessels operating in colonial authority space are required to carry proper documentation. Krex thought back to that moment when his entire worldview had collapsed. He had struck at the human with enough force to cut a starship in half. The little creature had caught his arm effortlessly and guided it away like he was redirecting a child's tantrum. "How did your people defeat us so easily?" he asked. Carol looked confused. "Defeat you? There wasn't really a battle, was there? Our officers boarded your ships, identified themselves, and asked you to come with them for processing. When some of your crew members became agitated, security personnel used standard restraint techniques to calm the situation." "Standard restraint techniques," Krex repeated. "Your security personnel are stronger than Vorthak warriors." "Oh, I wouldn't say that," Carol replied modestly. "Our officers receive extensive training in conflict de-escalation and crowd control. Most of them have backgrounds in law enforcement or military service." She activated another file on her datapad. "I've been reading about Vorthak physiology and culture. It's quite fascinating, actually. Your species evolved on a world with extreme environmental conditions which gave you remarkable physical capabilities." Krex nodded. "Our home world would kill most species within minutes. The gravity is 3 times standard, the atmosphere is toxic, and the surface is constantly bombarded with radiation and volcanic ash." "That's quite impressive," Carol said admiringly. "Humans evolved under somewhat similar conditions, though. Perhaps not quite as extreme. Our homeworld is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld by most galactic standards." "Class 12? Krex was stunned. "That's impossible. Humans are small and weak. Your bones should be crushed by normal gravity." Carol pulled up an image of Earth on her datapad. "Oh no, our world has standard gravity for us. But we did have to deal with some challenging conditions. Extreme weather, dangerous predators, frequent natural disasters, deadly diseases, and of course we had to survive several ice ages." She showed him pictures of Earth's wildlife, and Krex felt his blood run cold. The planet was filled with creatures that looked like nightmares from Vorthak mythology. Massive predators with knife-like teeth, venomous creatures that could kill, with a single bite, and parasites that could control their host's behavior. "You lived on a world with these things?" he asked, pointing at an image of what humans called a great white shark. "Oh yes, sharks are quite common in our oceans. Beautiful creatures, really, though you do have to be careful when swimming in certain areas." Carol continued showing him images of Earth's environment. Hurricanes that could level entire cities, earthquakes that split continents, volcanoes that blocked out the sun, and deserts where the temperature could kill exposed flesh in minutes. "But the most dangerous thing on our world," Carol said with a slight smile, "was other humans. We spent most of our evolutionary history fighting wars against each other. By the time we developed space travel, we had become very good at surviving in hostile environments." Krex stared at the images in growing understanding. "Your people are Deathworld survivors. I suppose you could say that. We don't really think of ourselves as unusual, though. Earth is just home to us." "And your military forces?" Carol's expression became more serious. "Our security personnel are trained to deal with threats that most species can't even imagine. They've faced opponents who use weapons of mass destruction as routine tactics, who fight wars lasting decades, and who consider entire planets as acceptable casualties." She leaned forward slightly. Krex, I need you to understand something important. When our officers boarded your ships, they weren't trying to humiliate you or prove their superiority. They were simply doing their jobs according to established procedures. Procedures that assume resistance from dangerous opponents. Procedures that assume resistance from opponents far more dangerous than anything we've encountered so far, Carol corrected. Your species may be the apex predators of the galaxy, but humans have spent their entire existence fighting creatures that make Vorthak warriors look like house pets. The room fell silent as Krex processed this information. His species had dominated, known space because no other civilization had evolved under conditions harsh enough to produce warriors capable of matching them. But humans had evolved under conditions that were even worse. What happens to us now? He asked quietly. Carol smiled and returned to her cheerful demeanor. That's entirely up to you. You can pay your fines and return home with a warning to stay out of our territory. Or if you're interested, we have several programs available for individuals seeking legal residency in colonial authority space. You would let us stay? Of course. We're always looking for qualified individuals to join our frontier colonies. Your people's natural resilience would make you excellent candidates for settlement worlds with challenging environments. Krex thought about his options. He could return to Vorthak space and spend the rest of his life knowing that his people were no longer the galaxy's dominant force, or he could stay with the humans and learn how. Captain Lisa Monroe sat in her ready room reviewing the evidence they had gathered from the Vorthak ships. 3 days had passed since they discovered the impounded dreadnoughts, and she still couldn't make sense of what they had witnessed. The security recordings showed humans casually defeating the galaxy's apex predators, but everything about the encounter violated basic principles of physics and military strategy. Captain, Lieutenant Danny Carter's voice came through the communication. System. We're receiving another automated signal from human space. This one's different from the others. Lisa hurried to the bridge where the crew had assembled around the main display. Instead of another impoundment notice, they were looking at what appeared to be a standard diplomatic communication request. It's addressed to the Galactic Survey Vessel Constellation's Edge, Danny reported. The message says they're responding to our inquiry about the impounded vessels and would like to discuss the matter through proper channels. Put it through, Lisa ordered. The screen flickered and displayed the image of a middle-aged human man, sitting behind what looked like an ordinary office desk. He was wearing a simple uniform with patches that read Interstellar Customs and Human Colonial Authority. His expression was polite but businesslike. "Good morning," the man said with a friendly smile. "This is Customs Agent Kevin Brooks. I understand you have questions about some vessels we've recently impounded for violations of territorial sovereignty and illegal border crossing." Lisa stared at the screen in disbelief. This ordinary-looking human was discussing Vorthak dreadnoughts, like they were illegally parked hover cars. "Agent Brooks," she began carefully, "I'm Captain Monroe of the Galactic Council Survey Fleet. We're investigating the disappearance of 3 Vorthak warships that were last seen in this sector." "Yes. We have those vessels in our impound facility," Brooks replied matter-of-factly. "The ships entered human territorial space without proper documentation and were seized pending investigation. Standard procedure for customs violations." "Commander," Jake Sullivan leaned forward. "Agent Brooks, are you saying that humans captured 3 Vorthak dreadnoughts for paperwork violations?" "Not captured, Commander. Impounded. There's an important legal distinction. The vessels were operating in restricted space without authorization from the Colonial Authority. We followed standard enforcement protocols. Dr. Amy Foster couldn't..." contain herself any longer. Agent Brooks, we're talking about Vorthak warships. These are the most dangerous vessels in known space, operated by the galaxy's most feared warriors. How could humans possibly have the capability to stop them? Brooks looked genuinely puzzled by the question. I'm sorry, Dr. Foster, but I don't understand the confusion. The vessels were in violation of clearly posted territorial boundaries. When our enforcement teams attempted to conduct a standard inspection, the occupants became hostile and were detained for assault on federal officers. Detained? Jake asked. What happened to the Vorthak crews? They're being held at Processing Center Gamma 7 pending resolution of their legal status, Brooks explained. I have to say they've been surprisingly cooperative since the initial incident. Very polite, actually. Lisa felt like she was losing her mind. Agent Brooks, can you explain how your enforcement teams were able to board and capture Vorthak warships without sustaining casualties? I'm not sure what you mean, Captain. The boarding was conducted according to standard safety protocols. Our teams wore proper environmental protection and followed all established procedures for vessel inspection and crew detention. But the Vorthak are 12-foot-tall armored predators with superhuman strength and reflexes, Amy protested. Their weapons can destroy starships. Brooks nodded sympathetically. Yes, some of the detainees did initially resist with improvised weapons. However, our officers are trained to handle difficult situations with minimal force. The subjects were subdued using standard crowd control techniques and processed according to immigration law. The bridge crew exchanged looks of complete bewilderment. This human was discussing the defeat of the galaxy's most dangerous warriors like it was a routine traffic stop. Agent Brooks, Lisa continued, how long has the Human Colonial Authority been operating in this region of space? The Colonial Authority has maintained territorial claims in this sector for approximately 40 years, Brooks replied. We have established colonies on 17 worlds and operate regular patrol routes throughout the region. 40 years? Jake asked. The Galactic Council has no record of human expansion into this area. That's entirely possible, Commander. The Colonial Authority operates independently of Earth's government and hasn't established formal diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. We've had occasional contact with various alien species, but this is our first significant enforcement action involving vessels from Council space. Amy was frantically taking notes. Agent Brooks, have you encountered other hostile alien species before? Define hostile, Doctor. We've had several situations involving unauthorized territorial incursions, but most issues are resolved through standard diplomatic channels. The current situation is unusual because the subjects insisted on escalating to violence rather than accepting standard citations. Lisa couldn't believe what she was hearing. Citations? You gave the Vorthak parking tickets. Not parking tickets. Captain, violations of territorial sovereignty, illegal border crossing, failure to respond to lawful orders from federal officers, and assault on government personnel. The fines are quite substantial, actually. What happens now? Lisa asked. Brooks consulted something off-screen. The subjects will be processed according to established procedures. If they can provide proper documentation and pay the required fines, they'll be released with a warning. If not, they'll be transferred to immigration services for deportation proceedings. And their ships? The vessels will remain impounded until all legal issues are resolved and impound fees are paid. We've had to make some modifications to the ship's systems to bring them up to safety standards, but the work was done by certified technicians and is fully reversible. Jake shook his head in amazement. Agent Brooks, do you understand that the Vorthak have conquered 17 different civilizations? They're considered the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. That may be true in Council Space Commander, but they're in colonial authority territory now. Different jurisdiction, different rules. Brooks paused and seemed to consider something. I should mention that several of the detainees have expressed interest in applying for legal residency. We have programs available for qualified applicants. The communication continued for another 20 minutes, with Brooks patiently answering questions while treating the entire situation as a routine administrative matter. He provided contact information for various government departments, explained appeal procedures for the impounded vessels, and even offered to send tourism brochures for anyone interested in visiting human colonies. When the communication ended, the bridge fell silent. Lisa looked around at her crew and saw her own confusion reflected on their faces. Did we just watch a customs agent offer vacation packages to conquered Vorthak warriors? Jake asked. I think we did, Amy replied. This changes everything we thought we knew about humans. Danny looked up from his console. Captain, I'm receiving additional transmissions from human space. It looks like news of our contact has spread through their communication networks. What kind of transmissions? Mostly routine traffic. Colony status reports, shipping manifests, patrol schedules. But, Captain, look at the scope of their operations. The main screen displayed a star map showing human activity throughout the region. Dozens of colonies, hundreds of ships, and a complex network of trade routes and military patrols. The humans had built a substantial interstellar civilization, while the rest of the galaxy remained completely unaware of their presence. How did we miss this? Lisa wondered aloud. Amy studied the data streaming across her console. Because we weren't looking for it. The Galactic Council focuses on major powers and established civilizations. Humans were classified as a minor species confined to their home system. This is going to cause a political earthquake when we report back to the Council, Jake observed. Lisa nodded grimly. The balance of power in this region just shifted completely. The Vorthak represented the ultimate military threat, and humans neutralized them like they were processing a routine customs violation. What do we do now? Danny asked. Before Lisa could answer, another transmission arrived from human space. This one was from a different department and bore the official seal of something called the Office of Interspecies Relations. Captain Monroe, the new message began. This is Director Helen Martinez of the Human Colonial Authority's Diplomatic Corps. We understand you represent the Galactic Council and would like to invite you to visit our regional headquarters to discuss establishing formal relations between our governments. We believe there are many opportunities for mutually beneficial cooperation. The message continued with coordinates for a human colony world and an invitation to bring a full diplomatic team. It was written in perfect standard galactic script and followed all established protocols for first contact between civilizations. The constellation's edge dropped out of warp speed at the coordinates the Galactic Council had provided. Captain Lisa Monroe expected to find empty space or perhaps a debris field from whatever battle had taken place. Instead, she found something. That made no sense at all. Captain, Lieutenant Danny Carter called from his sensor station. I'm reading 3 large vessels directly ahead. They appear to be intact but showing no power signatures. Lisa moved to the main view screen and activated the external cameras. What she saw made her pause in confusion. 3 massive Vorthak dreadnoughts floated silently in space, their dark hulls reflecting the light from a nearby star. Each ship was over 2 miles long and bristled with weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets. Are they damaged? She asked. Danny ran detailed scans on each vessel. No, Captain. The hulls are completely intact. I'm not detecting any blast, damage, or weapons impacts. But all three ships are completely dead. No power, no life support, no communications. Commander Jake Sullivan moved to the tactical station and began his own analysis. This doesn't make sense. Vorthak warships are built to survive planet-killing weapons. Their armor plating is 3 feet thick and their shields can deflect antimatter explosions. Dr. Amy Foster joined them at the main console, studying the sensor readings with growing amazement. The ships aren't destroyed, they're just turned off. It's like someone found a switch and shut them down completely. "Can we get closer?" Lisa asked. "Yes, Captain. I'm not detecting any weapons signatures or defensive systems. The ships appear to be completely inactive." As they moved closer to the first dreadnought, more details became visible on the main screen. The ship's hull showed strange markings that hadn't been there when it was built. Someone had burned letters into the armored plating using what appeared to be industrial cutting tools. "Danny, can you enhance the image of those markings?" The screen zoomed in on the side of the Vorthak warship. Clear as day, burned into the titanium armor in letters 10 feet tall, were words written in perfect, standard galactic script. "Warning. Trespassers will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law." The bridge fell silent as everyone stared at the message. Jake was the first to speak. "Someone boarded a Vorthak dreadnought and left a parking ticket?" Lisa couldn't believe what she was seeing. "Amy, is it possible this is some kind of Vorthak hunting ritual we don't understand?" "No, Captain. The Vorthak don't leave warnings. They don't communicate before attacking. They certainly don't write messages in standard galactic script." "Then, who did this?" Before anyone could answer, Danny's console began beeping with an incoming signal. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission from the lead dreadnought. It appears to be an automated message." "Put it on screen." The view screen flickered and displayed a simple text message. "Attention. This vessel has been impounded by human colonial authority. For information regarding retrieval of impounded property, please contact the Office of Interstellar Customs at the coordinates provided below. Have a nice day." Lisa stared at the message in complete confusion. Human colonial authority? I've never heard of any human government with that name. Jake shook his head. "Neither have I, and humans don't have the technology or military capability to take on Vorthak warships." "Maybe we should board one of these ships and see what happened," Amy suggested. "Are you insane?" Jake replied. "These ships could be booby-trapped. Or worse, there might still be Vorthak warriors inside." Danny ran more detailed scans. "Actually, Commander, I'm not detecting any life signs on any of the three vessels. They appear to be completely empty." Lisa made her decision. "Prepare a boarding party. Full environmental suits and heavy weapons. I want to know what happened here." 2 hours later, Lisa led a team of 6 crew members through the airlocks of the first Vorthak dreadnought. The interior of the ship was unlike anything she had ever seen. The corridors were built for creatures 12 feet tall, with ceilings that disappeared into darkness above their heads. The walls were covered with organic-looking armor plating that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered Chief Engineer Pete Williams as he scanned the walls with his equipment. "Stay alert," Lisa replied. "We don't know what we're dealing with." As they moved deeper into the ship, they began finding evidence of what had happened. Blast marks on the walls showed where weapons had been fired, but the damage patterns were unlike anything in their databases. Instead of the massive destruction caused by military-grade energy weapons, these marks were small, precise, and surgically accurate. "Captain, look at this!" Amy called from a side corridor. Lisa joined her and found herself looking at a section of wall that had been cut apart with incredible precision. Someone had removed a piece of the ship's armor plating and welded it back in place, but the work was so perfect it was almost impossible to see the repair lines. Someone was modifying the ship's systems, Amy observed. But this level of precision would require industrial manufacturing equipment. They continued through the ship until they reached the bridge. The command center was enormous, with control stations designed for the massive Vorthak warriors. But everything was dark and silent. Pete found the ship's main computer terminal and connected his equipment. "I'm accessing their security recordings. Let me see if I can find out what happened." The holographic display activated and began showing security footage from the ship's internal cameras. What they saw defied everything they thought they knew about military combat. The recording showed the bridge during what appeared to be normal operations. Dozens of Vorthak warriors, each one a 12-foot-tall nightmare of claws and armor, were working at their stations. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "They're being boarded," Jake observed. The next part of the recording showed Vorthak security teams rushing through the corridors, carrying weapons that could punch holes through starship hulls. They moved with the fluid grace of apex predators, their glowing red eyes scanning for threats. Then the boarders appeared on screen. Lisa felt her heart stop as she watched 6 figures in simple environmental suits walking calmly through the Vorthak ship's corridors. They were clearly human, based on their size and movement patterns, but they moved through the hostile environment like they were taking a casual stroll through a park. The Vorthak warriors opened fire with everything they had. Energy blasts that could melt through battleship armor struck the human boarders directly. The humans barely seemed to notice. They continued walking forward, occasionally pausing to examine something interesting on the walls. "This is impossible," Jake whispered. "Those weapons should have vaporized them instantly." The recording continued, showing the Vorthak warriors growing increasingly desperate as their most powerful weapons had no effect on the intruders. The humans, meanwhile, were having what appeared to be casual conversations among themselves, pointing at various ship systems and taking notes on handheld devices. One of the humans walked up to a massive Vorthak warrior and tapped him politely on the shoulder. When the alien turned around, the human held up some kind of identification badge and began speaking. The audio was too distorted to understand, but it looked like he was asking for directions. The Vorthak warrior swung his claws at the human, with enough force to cut through steel beams. The human caught the alien's arm in mid-swing and gently guided it away, shaking his head in what appeared to be mild disapproval. Within minutes, all of the Vorthak warriors on screen had simply stopped fighting and were following the humans around like confused children. The apex predators of the galaxy were taking orders from creatures half their size who treated their ultimate weapons like minor inconveniences. "How is this possible?" Amy asked, staring at the screen in amazement. The recording continued for several more hours, showing the humans methodically working their way through the ship's systems. They installed small devices at key locations, made precision modifications to critical components, and left everything neat and orderly when they were finished. The final part of the recording showed the humans politely escorting the Vorthak crew to the ship's cargo bays. The warriors who had terrorized the galaxy for centuries walked docilely behind their captors, making no attempts to fight or escape. Just before the recording ended, one of the humans turned toward the camera and waved. He was wearing a simple uniform with a badge that read Customs Enforcement Division and appeared to be smiling behind his helmet's faceplate. The screen went dark, leaving the boarding party staring at each other in stunned silence. "Pete," Lisa said quietly, Please tell me you can explain what we just saw. The engineer shook his head slowly. Captain, according to everything I know about physics and military technology, what we just watched is completely impossible. Those humans should be dead 10 times over. But they're not, Jake observed. They're out there somewhere with 3 ships full of Vorthak prisoners. Lisa activated her communication device. Constellation's Edge, this is the captain. Prepare for immediate departure. We need to report this to the Galactic Council immediately. As they made their way back to the airlock, none of them could stop thinking about what they had witnessed. Somewhere in human space, Captain Lisa Monroe stood on the bridge of the Galactic Survey vessel Constellation's Edge and stared at the message that had just arrived from the Galactic Council. The red warning lights blinked across her command screen as she read the coordinates, and the words that made her blood run cold. Extreme caution advised. Deathworld classification, Omega 9. She had been exploring unknown sectors of space for 15 years but had never seen a classification that high. Most Deathworlds barely reached level 5, and Omega 9 meant something so dangerous that even the Council's best warriors avoided it completely. The message contained coordinates to a system near the edge of human space and orders to investigate. Immediately. "Jake, get over here," she called to Commander Jake Sullivan, who was checking weapon systems at the tactical station. He walked over and read the message over her shoulder. His face went pale as he saw the classification level. "Captain, I've never seen anything rated that high," Jake said quietly. "What kind of world could be that dangerous?" Before Lisa could answer, Dr. Amy Foster hurried onto the bridge, carrying a data pad filled with information she had just downloaded from the Council's databases. Amy was the ship's xenobiologist and had studied more alien species than anyone else in the fleet. Her hands were shaking as she looked at the data. "I found information about the system," Amy said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The planet is called Kepler 442b. It's the homeworld of a species called the Vorthak." Jake frowned and shook his head. "Never heard of them." "Most people haven't lived long enough to tell stories about them," Amy replied. She activated the holographic display in the center of the bridge. An image appeared showing a massive reptilian creature standing 12 feet tall with thick armor plating covering its entire body. Its claws were as long as human hands, and its eyes glowed red in the darkness. Lisa felt her heart skip a beat as she looked at the creature. "How big are they?" 12 feet tall and they weigh about 800 pounds, Amy said. "But size isn't what makes them dangerous. Their homeworld has gravity 3 times stronger than Earth normal. The atmosphere is filled with toxic gases that would kill most species in minutes. The entire planet is covered with active volcanoes that constantly fill the air with ash and poisonous fumes." Commander Sullivan studied the image carefully. "Their armor looks natural. Is it part of their skin?" "Yes," Amy nodded. "Their bone density is comparable to titanium steel. They can survive in environments that would crush or poison any other known life form, but the worst part is their behavior." She changed the display to show a star map with red marks scattered across dozens of systems. Each red mark represented a world that no longer existed as a functioning civilization. "The Vorthak are hunters," Amy continued. "They don't just fight wars, they hunt entire species for sport. They've destroyed 17 different civilizations over the past 2 centuries. Every time they encounter another intelligent species, they study them, learn their weaknesses, then systematically hunt them to extinction." Lisa stared at the map in horror. "The Council has never been able to stop them?" "Nobody has ever been able to stop them," Amy said. They've never lost a battle. They've never retreated. They've never shown mercy. When a Vorthak fleet appears in a system, entire sectors go silent. Other species evacuate their colonies and hope the Vorthak don't follow them. Jake moved to the tactical console and began running calculations. How many ships do they have? Unknown, Amy replied. They don't communicate with other species except to issue hunting challenges. The Council estimates they have at least 50 major warships, each one capable of destroying entire planets. Their technology is centuries ahead of most galactic civilizations. Lieutenant Danny Carter looked up from his communications station. Captain, I'm receiving an updated message from the Council. They're sending us more information about our mission. Lisa activated her command screen and read the new orders. Her face grew grim as she realized what the Council was asking them to do. We're being sent to investigate a missing Vorthak fleet, she announced to the bridge crew. 3 of their dreadnoughts were last seen heading toward the edge of human space. They've been completely silent for 6 weeks. The bridge fell completely silent. Everyone knew that Vorthak warships never went silent unless something terrible had happened. Dr. Foster was the first to speak. Captain, if something happened to a Vorthak fleet, what could possibly be powerful enough to defeat them? That's what we're being sent to find out, Lisa replied. The Council is worried that the Vorthak have encountered something even more dangerous than they are. Jake began running tactical assessments on his console. 3 Vorthak dreadnoughts could glass an entire planet. If something took them out, we're dealing with a threat level beyond anything in recorded history. The Council wants us to locate the missing fleet and determine what happened to them. Lisa continued reading from the orders. We're to gather intelligence and report back immediately. Under no circumstances are we to engage any hostile forces we might encounter. Amy looked at the holographic display showing the Vorthak warrior again. Captain, I need to point out something important. The Vorthak don't just disappear. They don't retreat and they don't surrender. If their fleet has gone silent, it means something destroyed them completely. Or captured them, Jake added grimly, which might be even worse. Lisa turned to Lieutenant Carter. Danny, set course for the coordinates the Council provided. Maximum warp speed. Yes, Captain, Carter replied, his fingers flying over the navigation controls. ETA to the target system is 14 hours at maximum warp. As the Constellation's Edge entered warp speed and began its journey toward the unknown, Lisa found herself wondering what they would find when they arrived. The Vorthak were the galaxy's apex predators, the nightmare that kept entire civilizations awake at night. They had dominated known space for centuries through pure brutality and overwhelming physical superiority. Dr. Foster continued studying the data about Vorthak physiology and combat capabilities. Their reflexes were superhuman, their strength was comparable to industrial machinery, and their natural armor could deflect most energy weapons. They could survive in vacuum for extended periods, and their ships were armed with weapons that could crack planets in half. Captain, Amy said after several minutes of reading, I'm looking at their combat records. The Vorthak have fought against every major military force in the galaxy, the Centauri Defense Fleet, the Rigel Star Navy, the Arcturian battle groups. They've defeated them all without losing a single ship. Jake looked up from his tactical calculations. If something took out 3 Vorthak dreadnoughts, we need to seriously consider the possibility that we're flying toward our own destruction. Lisa nodded grimly. I know, Jake, but the Council needs this information. If there's something out there that's more dangerous than the Vorthak, the entire galaxy needs to know about it. The ship continued through hyperspace toward the coordinates where the most feared warriors in known space had simply vanished without a trace. None of them could imagine what force could be powerful enough to make the Vorthak disappear completely, as Captain Monroe stared out at the swirling colors of hyperspace. She found herself hoping they would find empty space and scattered debris. The alternative was too terrifying to consider. Something had defeated the undefeatable, and they were flying straight toward it. The stolen Kethvar shuttle docked with the Earth vessel Shadow's Edge 12 hours after escaping the alien command ship. Maya Rodriguez was the first one off, moving with the same deadly grace that had carried her through the enemy vessel. Commander Jake Patterson waited in the docking bay with a full medical team and debriefing specialists. "Mission status?" Patterson asked as Maya approached. "Complete success," she replied, removing her helmet to reveal features marked by exhaustion, but showing no sign of doubt or regret. 12 prisoners recovered, 0 human casualties. And enemy casualties? Maya's smile was sharp as a blade. 37 confirmed kills. No survivors among the guards. Patterson's eyes widened slightly at the number. He had expected Maya to be effective, but this level of destruction exceeded even the most optimistic projections. "Any complications?" "They still think humans are slow," Maya said. That made things easier than expected. Captain Bennett and her crew were taken to medical bay for evaluation and treatment. They had been prisoners for weeks and needed proper care, but their spirits were high for the first time since their capture. Dr. Morgan lingered behind to speak with Maya before following the others. "I have been studying alien psychology for 15 years, he said. "The Kethvar base their entire worldview on physical superiority and rapid reflexes. What you did to them will shake their fundamental beliefs about reality itself." Maya nodded as she began removing her combat equipment. Each weapon was carefully cleaned and secured, a ritual that helped her transition from killer back to soldier. Good. Maybe next time they will think twice before taking human prisoners. The debriefing took place in a secure conference room deep within the ship. Maya sat across from Patterson and 2 other officers, recounting every detail of her infiltration and rescue operation. Her enhanced memory allowed her to recall precise timing, weapon effectiveness, and tactical assessments with computer-like accuracy. "The Kethvar security protocols are based on the assumption that intruders will move at biological speeds," she reported. "They never considered the possibility of enhanced humans with augmented reflexes. Their sensor systems, patrol, patterns, and response times are all calibrated for normal organic reaction speeds." "What about their individual combat capabilities?" asked Colonel Sarah Mitchell, the ship's intelligence officer. "Impressive for unenhanced biologicals," Maya replied. "Their natural reflexes are approximately 3 times faster than baseline humans. But enhancement technology makes that advantage irrelevant. I was moving faster than their nervous systems could process." Patterson leaned forward in his chair. "Maya, you need to understand the broader implications of this mission. The Kethvar will analyze what happened and update their intelligence about human capabilities. This could trigger an escalation in their military planning. Then maybe they will approach future negotiations with more respect for what humans can do when properly motivated." 3 days later, the news of the rescue reached Earth Command and sent shockwaves through the military hierarchy. The successful extraction of diplomatic personnel from a maximum security alien facility represented a new level of operational capability that few had thought possible. More importantly, it demonstrated that human enhancement technology had reached a point where individual soldiers could challenge entire alien military units. General Robert Chen reviewed Maya's mission reports in his secure office, paying particular Attention to the tactical analysis and enemy casualty assessments. 37 kills in under 20 minutes represented a level of combat effectiveness that bordered on science fiction, yet the evidence was undeniable. "How many enhanced operatives do we have like Rodriguez?" he asked his aide. "Classified information, sir, but the program has been expanding for the past 5 years. We currently have enough enhanced soldiers to form several complete tactical units." Chen nodded thoughtfully. The alien races of the galaxy had been treating humanity as a minor power, barely worth considering in their political calculations. Maya Rodriguez had just sent them a very clear message about the dangers of underestimating human potential. Meanwhile, aboard the Keth-Var command ship Tal Hanor, Admiral Zekthor stood in his private quarters staring at a holographic display that showed the detention level where 37 of his warriors had died. Forensic analysis had confirmed what the security footage suggested. A single human operative had been responsible for all the casualties. The precision of the kills was what disturbed him most. Each death had been caused by wounds that targeted specific vital organs or nerve centers, suggesting knowledge of Keth-Var anatomy that should have been impossible for humans to possess. The speed of the attacks defied biological possibility, moving faster than enhanced Keth-Var reflexes could register or respond to. "Admiral," Commander Vector entered the room carrying a data pad with the latest intelligence reports. "Our analysts have completed their assessment of the human infiltrator's capabilities. Report. The individual in question appears to have been surgically enhanced beyond normal human limitations. Neural implants allowed for accelerated reaction times, and muscle augmentation provided strength and speed that exceeded our previous estimates of human potential." Zekthor studied the analysis with growing unease. If humans possessed enhancement technology that could create soldiers of this caliber, then every tactical assessment his people had made was worthless. The slow, clumsy creatures they had been, planning to conquer, were apparently capable of producing warriors that could match or exceed Keth-Var combat abilities. "How many enhanced humans might they have?" he asked. "Unknown, Admiral. This could represent a single prototype individual, or it could indicate widespread military enhancement throughout their species. We have no way to determine the scope of their enhancement programs." The implications were staggering. Zekthor's planned invasion of human colonies had been based on the assumption that human defenders would be easy to overwhelm with superior Keth-Var speed and reflexes. If significant numbers of humans possessed enhancement technology, those invasions could turn into costly disasters. "Cancel all offensive operations against human territories," he ordered. "Send diplomatic envoys to their government requesting formal negotiations about prisoner exchanges and territorial boundaries. Admiral, that will be seen as a sign of weakness by the other races. Better to appear weak than to discover too late that we have provoked an enemy we cannot defeat." Back on Earth, Maya Rodriguez completed her post-mission medical evaluation and returned to active duty status. The enhancement implants had performed flawlessly during combat, with no sign of rejection or malfunction. Her success rate had been 100%, with 0 friendly casualties and complete mission objective achievement. She stood in the training facility watching the next generation of enhanced soldiers practice their combat techniques. Young men and women who had volunteered for the augmentation process, trading their normal human limitations for the ability to move faster than thought and strike harder than any natural creature. "Proud of your work?" asked Commander Patterson, joining her at the observation window. "Satisfied with the results," Maya replied. "The Keth-Var needed to learn that humans are not the helpless creatures they imagined us to be. Intelligence reports suggest they have canceled their planned attacks on our outer colonies. Your mission may have prevented a war. Maya watched a trainee execute a perfect sequence of kills against robotic opponents, moving with the fluid grace that marked all enhanced soldiers. Or it may have started one. Enhanced humans represent a fundamental shift in the balance of power. Other alien races will want to know how far our capabilities extend. Are you ready for that challenge? Maya's smile was the expression of a predator contemplating prey. I was born ready. The galaxy thought humans were weak because they had only seen our diplomats and traders. Now they know that when humans choose to be dangerous, we are more dangerous than anything else in known space. The rescue mission aboard the Talhenor had been more than just a tactical victory. It was a declaration that humanity had evolved beyond the limitations that other species thought defined them. Maya Rodriguez had killed 37 alien warriors in 20 minutes without triggering an alarm, proving that human enhancement technology had created something unprecedented in galactic history. The age of underestimating humanity was over, ended by a quiet woman who moved faster than lightning and killed more efficiently than any natural predator. Across the galaxy, alien military planners were updating their threat assessments and reconsidering their assumptions about human capabilities. Maya Rodriguez had sent them a message written in the blood of their warriors. Humans were no longer prey, but apex predators among the stars. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again.